Hey guys, this is Solacespecs, and I wanted to give you an update to the Spectral Throw Double Strike Scion build that became very popular in the past several patches with Path of Exile. With the 1.1 patch, there were quite a few changes to the passive skill tree, which has therefore affected the original build that I made a YouTube video about. Originally in my YouTube video, I did a Scion Spectral Throw Double Strike build that was pretty effective in farming Merciless mode. In fact, I got all the way up to level 88 before I finally ripped to me being a total idiot and running out of flasks against a Corrupting Blood. So real quick, what I'll do is I'll go through some of the changes that have been made to the skill tree, and then I'll talk about what the new skill tree looks like for this build. And it actually is pretty effective, and not starting over on the Scion tree actually gives you quite a few more options. So real quick, let me talk about some of the skill changes that have occurred in the tree, and those will lead to why I have actually moved away from the Scion. First of all, you'll notice that the life nodes here have been nerfed quite substantially. Instead of being 8% nodes, they are now 6% nodes. Additionally, this is now just, instead of these, this was I think a 12% node here. Previously, or even if it was a 10% node, it still had the 2 next to it as well. Those have been removed, and this is just a 10% node. Additionally, Berserking has been reduced from 15% to 12%. Vaal pack, as you know, has been nerfed quite hard. Additionally, I'm not sure if By the Blade was here originally, but it's a 10% max life node that also does damage. And a big nerf was this little area over here that had 2 12% nodes here, and this had no life on it. And so now what they've done is they have reduced the 12% to 8s, and they have made this an 8% node here. Now the reason I don't go this is because it's an extra skill point. And in the long run, the reason that 2 were so valuable is because you got 24 for 2 skill points. Now you get 24 for 3. I'm just quite not sure yet if it's valuable for me to invest in. Additionally, we go up into the Marauder tree. Some changes here. They added 1% max resist to these nodes, which for those of you who don't know Path of Exile too well in terms of the resistance system, pretty much when you're capped at resistances at 75%, what you can know, without me kind of doing into all the complexities of it, just kind of think of one maximum resist as 10% less damage. Okay, it's not exactly that, but that's just a good way to think about it. And so even though it's only 1% max, just imagine it as being 10% less damage that you're going to take. And so if a Frostbolt hits you for 4,000, it will now hit you for 3,600 instead due to max resist. And if any of you guys have played Merciless, Path of Exile, especially into the mapping phase, you can agree with me that there are several times that you get down to having only sometimes 100 life or 200 life or 300 life. In addition to that, there aren't really any other changes that have happened to the build, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the new Spectral Throw Double Strike build. And there are a lot of options here. I'm going to talk about the way that I've built it. I currently have not really gone into Merciless with this build yet because I'm actually focusing on a different build that I'll make a video about here in the next few weeks. But in the meantime, if you are aching to try this build out and see how it works, it actually works pretty effectively. A buddy of mine has been doing a 2-hander Spectral Throw Double Strike build, and together we came up with this skill tree, and he's having great success with it. He's currently level, I think, 78 in Hardcore, excuse me, in Invasion, which, as you know, Invasion is kind of ridiculously difficult now. So the first thing I'll point out is you actually start with a Ranger instead of a Scion, and that's just because of the nerfs to the Scion starting tree. It's not very valuable anymore. Ranger is where it's at. They were already sort of neck and neck before. Now they are definitely incredible. What you'll notice here with this build is because of the Ranger starting position, on my Scion video I was able to access these life nodes, but with the Ranger starting position you're actually able to access some additional life nodes. You have a 12% conditioning node. You also have 2 12% life nodes. These are incredible nodes that you're going to want to get to, as well as max life and max mana. This may seem small, but it actually is pretty useful because, again, adding just 20 life, especially when you have all these other life nodes, is going to turn out to be something like 200 to 300 life, if not more. That actually is probably not true. It's actually going to be close to about 100 life. Sorry about that. Now, with that in mind, what you'll do is you'll spec coming out of the evasion and life nodes. And again, I'm building this around hardcore. You are more than happy to, if you're playing softcore, go attack speed and projectile damage. It really doesn't make much of a difference, but because I build for hardcore, I take these life nodes to begin with, which gives you 16% life as well as the 12 max life. You have your finesse, and what you're going to want to do, especially in hardcore, is I would actually ignore Ballistic Mastery. You're free to get it. It's just that it's not too powerful, especially because chances are as you're leveling, you're going to use projectile speed anyway, and so just because you won't have really any better gems to use, so it's not really too useful. But if you are actually wanting the damage, you could spec up to it. And one rule of thumb that I like to encourage you guys to follow is to not really worry about damage nodes. You know, people can get very caught up in damage nodes and, well, how am I going to do damage if I don't pick up the damage nodes? And really, your damage comes from your weapon, okay? There are so many opportunities to find a cheap weapon out there, and the weapon is what you need to actually do the damage. And a lot of players make the mistake of thinking that if I just pick up all these damage nodes, then I will be able to clear mobs quickly, yada, yada, yada. And the problem with that is, because of the lack of life, resistance, and armor, they end up getting one shot when they step into Merciless mode. So I actually want to encourage you to stay away from Ballistic Mastery and any other damage nodes. We pick up Finesse just because we go through it, obviously. And just kind of trust me on it, just having, you know, me being someone who's played through Hardcore quite a few times. Just know that if you can find a good weapon, you're going to do plenty of damage. It's not going to be a problem. It's going to be no big deal. And if you have any questions on how to find a good weapon, obviously I can answer those. Just ask them in the comments. So what I would actually do is your goal should be to reach this area, and this area as fast as possible. And so what I would actually encourage you to do is, as soon as you start leveling, I would ignore these life nodes. I'd begin leveling through here. I'd pick up your thick skin. I'd move on down. I'd grab your diamond flesh and this set of nodes here. I'd move up through, go through these, and then end with your diamond skin. The reason for this is that it's going to take off some of the pressure of finding resistance gear, because you'll have gotten 22% from diamond flesh and diamond skin. Additionally, you'll have grabbed some resistances here. If you're finding yourself having a problem getting the appropriate resistances, obviously you can just spec 3 more points into these, and then you can refund them later. I don't know if you remember from my original video, I used to spec into these 3 points just because I was going to spec out of them anyway, and by specing into them, it at least gave me almost 20 resistances to at least farm with in Merciless. So if you need the resistances, you can farm in here. You can, spec into here if you need to. But if we count this up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. So that's 44 skill points to make it to diamond skin. And if you reduce the amount from the axe that you get for free, there's the 2 from Piety, 1 from the bus. There is the way forward. There is the crab cave, and also Captain Fairgraves. That gives you 6 skill points for each difficulty. And so let's say you're level 40 by the time you get into Cruel. So it's about 35 levels. So really by the time you get to Cruel difficulty, you'll have made it all the way to here. The reason I like to do this is because instead of specking through all these points is because these things aren't really necessary early game. Now, let me try to explain that a little better for you. The temptation can be to grab every single node that you need along the way. The problem with that is that the most valuable nodes then become harder and harder to get to. The reason they become harder to get to is, first, obviously, leveling takes longer as you get farther into the game, but also it becomes far more dangerous the farther you get into the game. So let's say you're level 70 and you're right here, okay? You're level 70, you're right here, and, or actually this is a level 90 build, and so these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are the last 10 points that you need. Well, at a level 80 build, think of how long it's going to take to go from 80 to 90. It's going to probably take you a week, maybe 2 weeks. And so just getting these last nodes are going to take forever. Trust me, what you would rather do is get the important life nodes and survivability nodes you need early on, and then, let's say when you're level 80, it comes down to, for example, level 80 getting Razor's Edge. Does that make sense? And so you want to try to save the worst nodes for last and get the best ones early on. You know, with that in mind, you will have a couple of stretches of just stat nodes. I would encourage getting these early as well. There's nothing worse than being late in the game and having to go through a set of stat nodes just to get to the next node that you need. And so don't save these stat nodes till Merciless. Try to get them as early as you can. I did a build on Hardcore on Invasion that I'm working on right now. He's level 60, and I have to go from one side of the tree to the other, and actually the first 50 levels I just got all the stat nodes I needed to because I didn't want to have to deal with them later on. So a couple of noticeable passives. Obviously you have the Diamond Flesh and Diamond Skin, you have Iron Reflexes, you have Thick Skin, you have some life nodes here and there. You'll also notice that this build is mostly reliant on swords. You can, however, do axes. There's plenty of axe nodes nearby. Also, I just grabbed the sword nodes that I felt like were most valuable, but there may be some that are more valuable. For example, Brutal Blade. Some people might contest that Brutal Blade is pretty good. I felt like it was the worst one out of all of them. Additionally, for the last 10 points, you can go into more life. You can additionally go into more of the damage talents this direction. Whatever you decide to do, there's quite a few options. You can even go up to the Scion tree if you want and grab the life node and resistances, although you probably won't need it late game. So with all that said, guys, I hope this build gives you guys a better perspective of how to roll your Double Strike Scion, your Double Strike Spectral Throw class in 1.1. Again, I'd encourage you going Ranger instead of Scion. You can also do Duelist, although it's not as efficient or effective. And in doing that, I hope you guys are able to enjoy it, but just know that you will need a sword if you're going to follow this build exactly. Because again, notice that most of these keystones are relying on swords. Feel free to ask any questions in the comment. One last thing I'll say is that the percent life that you get from all these life nodes is over 250% life. I always suggest 250% life for Hardcore. That's what I roll on all of my characters, is I try to get about 250%. And this build also has 250% so that you won't end up getting screwed late game when the monsters start hitting really hard. So anyway, I hope that helps you guys. I'll make sure I put a link of this build in the comments. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Oh, one last thing. Sorry, I forgot. For the skill points from the bandits, you're going to do 40 life. You're going to do the 18% physical damage. And then you can do either the endurance charge, which you can grab another one here, or you would do the skill point. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.